Thank you, everyone. I'm extremely happy to be here and be part of this community. It's awesome to see all of you here around the Kubernetes and Cloud Native in Hungary. Congrats again to the organizers. As already mentioned, previously I worked at GitLab. Actually, I owned all the application delivery features of GitLab in the past roughly 5 years. And before that, I myself even operated a small-scale deployment for a startup. And to add one more subtitle to my talk, to connect it with Kasper's question around VMs and SSH and containers, I think that adoption takes time. And roughly that's what my talk will show you, where we're coming from and where might we be going. But first of all, my promise to you throughout this talk is to offer a framework to think about application delivery holistically. That basically should allow you to position yourself, your own company, and your own current setup in this whole domain, and that might help with discussions around platform engineering or not platform engineering. And as well, I hope to offer some ideas on what might come next. And if I do it right, then it can help you to get ready for it or even drive those changes actually. For this, first, I will try to create some shared understanding here. That's for the framework part. Then discuss the major milestones in the past 20 years, long time frame. Show a current status through some nice visualization that I like a lot to visualize trends and dynamics of the market actually. And finally, my own insights about the likely trends, take it with a piece of salt, like it's just my insight. So for the framework, I think that our application, like each of our application depends on many factors. And I identified roughly 4 dimensions that I would like to share with you, how to think about it when you speak with someone else who works for a different company. The first is what kind of services you are building and deploying. Many of us likely primarily familiar with web services. It might be a monolith, it might be an army of microservices, it might be new or running for 20 years, but it's a web service, right? You have an idea how it works, and the deployment is very similar in all these setups. The next item is edge. I guess we are in the telco space. I guess many people are from telcos. They are way more familiar with edge deployments and setups than I was even 5 years ago before I joined GitLab. So they have similar problems, but at a different scale often than what traditional web services mean. The most edgy edge device I've heard about was running Kubernetes on satellite, for example. Think about the network errors and latency that's possible in that case. At the same time, edge means as well a large scale of similar but not exactly the same setups that you have to deploy. So very different setups than what you get in the traditional web service. I mentioned here embedded as well. One might even ask whether it's cloud native or not, but with modular Linux and all of that stuff, it becomes more and more like the edge. And mobile is just mentioned here because I don't think anything that I speak is related to mobile. So just to give you an idea what I don't want to touch on much. It looks a bit like the edge because it's in everyone's pocket, and I mean, the car runs Android as well. So, but there are some things that might be related later on, but it's not really the focus of my talk. The second dimension is your own company. 2 endpoints, whether you are a startup or a regulated enterprise, clearly you have different requirements. Going back to Kasper's idea of SSHing to a VM, in 2014, when I worked for a startup, and on the launch day, we had our CD pipeline set up. I think it was Atlassian Bamboo or something back then that we were using. We identified a serious bug a few hours before the official launch. We were in the office, media was invited, it was quite a big hype done around it. And me and another engineer, we sit down in front of a laptop, SSH into the production server and fix it in production a few hours before the launch. This is great for a startup. I don't recommend anyone to do it. We were sweating. Definitely shouldn't do it if you work in a regulated setup, and you shouldn't be able to do it in that case. So your company maturity definitely matters in terms of how you should approach application delivery. The third item is, where do you start from? What is your current status in terms of cloud native adoption, let's say? I only highlighted some possible starting points here. Clearly, there's a huge variety. And throughout my tenure at GitLab, what I've seen is that like containers are definitely everywhere today. I've seen one single GitLab customer who did not use containers, and I spoke with hundreds of them. And the talk was about how could they containerize and move to that direction as well. Overall, if you are very much on this journey, no big surprises here. Start it small, step by step. Don't aim for the final step. If you are in a VM, just containerize first. Start with non-mission critical workloads, etc. And the fourth dimension is, who is in charge of application delivery? I think this is a very, very important point to consider. DevOps is in many ways pushing responsibility towards application developers. This has many implementations. Sometimes it means that developers receive full freedom to manage everything around their deployments. Sometimes it means that there's still a very strong SRE team who is in charge of all the deployments, and you just have an error budget, for example, and you have to manage that. This was actually the case at GitLab. And there are many companies, especially microservices-oriented companies, where you might have application owners and they are supported by a strong platforming team, and not just supported, but even in a good way, restricted by them, so they do the right things in an easy way. But these are very different approaches, and it's an organizational aspect. So to summarize these four dimensions that I think you should consider when you discuss application delivery with others is like, where do you deploy? Not what are you building? Who are you in terms of company size and maturity? Where do you start from? And who is in charge of application delivery? Now, as we have this shared understanding, I would like to go through the past 20 years of major developments in this application delivery and cloud native application delivery especially. So let's see a timeline. Of course, everything started with AWS, I would say, a long time ago. And I was a bit surprised that Docker came like 7 years later when I went through that. Clearly, I would definitely call containerization an era-defining innovation. Like what we have today is just way better than we had before. And just one thing that if you take away, if you are just starting a new service or something, you shouldn't think whether you should containerize or not. You should. The only reason when you should think not to containerize is if you have really good reasons not to do that. So at least take this away if you are not on containers very much. There are a few use cases that are not good for a container, but are extremely rare. The next big topic is obviously Kubernetes, open source in 2014, and V1 came in 2015. Today, since 2020, even Toasters thinks that Kubernetes is the de facto container orchestration platform. So the question is not whether you should deploy containers, but like how should you deploy containers to Kubernetes roughly? That's for many of us the question here. Many smaller things. Helm released in 2016. I have a few technologies that are like borderline related to application delivery. One of them is our policy toolings. Open policy is one, I think, likely the most mature, not really Kubernetes friendly in many ways, but still a good thing. And as you can see, it's around for a very long time now. And I just love GitOps, I have to admit. I think the biggest innovation in application delivery after containerization and Kubernetes was actually GitOps. Started at Weaveworks by Fluxity in 2016. Just look at the timeline, like Kubernetes is 1 year old. And there are people who come up with this idea that it's actually, Kubernetes is a programmable API, and that's what I'm going to use it for. It's a really brilliant idea, very early on. At the same time, I'm pretty sure that many of you use Argo CD for GitOps. just a fun fact, Argo did not start as a GitOps tool. It started with Argo Workflows, the Argo project, which is roughly a CI solution. But soon it followed with Argo CD in 2018. And an interesting thing is that not much later came two solutions. Flagger is from the Flux community. Argo Rollouts is from the Argo project. Both of them are around release management, specifically like rollout management rather. So like blue-green deployments, canary rollouts, etc. That's what they can help you with. And Kyverno, another policy tool similar to Open Policy, which is actually very much Kubernetes friendly, and I'm a huge fan of that as well. We are getting to the first non-Kubernetes graduated project, I think, was the Update framework. If you don't know it, that's totally fine. It's not really for many of us. On the other hand, it's very important specification, as far as I know, for Edge and various use cases. And I think what's very interesting here is the topic itself. It's about supply chain security, which will become much more important in a few years. And it's already graduated in 2019. Now I mentioned as well Flux v2 here, which is a rewrite of Flux. And it shows how you can do GitOps right. I know that many Argo CD users think that that's a brilliant tool. It is. It's a brilliant end-user tool. At the same time, Flux actually is extremely popular in many other setups. Like if you build a platform, Flux is extremely popular. If you operate in a telco setup with edge devices, often Argo is not even an option for you. And discussing application delivery, I think Captain, which I would actually call a failed project, is an awesome idea. I think they are the first who really tried to solve for application delivery from start to end in a single tool. Likely that was one of the reasons why it failed in the end. So looking at it from an idea perspective can give us a lot of learnings on what to work on and how not to do it. But it's really awesome. They just try to do everything from release promotion, from stage to stage, connected with metrics and everything in a single YAML file. I think they nailed the problem. Of course, the implementation was not the right or the timing wasn't right, but it's a really great one. Backstage, another borderline rated technology to application delivery. But if you are into platform teams and platforming, check out Backstage as well as a couple of other platform tools. And a big thing, not a technology, but a supply chain attack. I remember that at GitLab, we were actually discussing whether it means the end of open source. So it was really huge change in the prioritization of software supply chain topics in the industry. And the open source response came a few months later, like actually in a month or 2 months, with the Sigstore company and these 3 projects under Sigstore, Record, Cosine, and Fullshoe. It's like it will come back in a few years' time. Getting back to major project, Argo and Flux matures in 2022, but something more important, not more important, more noisy happens as well in December, which is ChatGPT, the preview launch. I won't speak much about AI actually, but I think it should be mentioned because everybody speaks about it. For application delivery, I think it's much more interesting, the Cargo project. If you are Argo CD users and haven't looked at Cargo yet, then I strongly recommend to doing that. It's a multi-stage promotion support tool built around Argo CD, roughly. Can help you with rolling out a single release from environment to environment. I'm not extremely optimistic about it, but it's a very nice try, and for many setups, I think it can be a very good solution. Cilium, again, borderline related technology, I would say, with eBPF as well and everything. but it's such a fundamental technology that I expect that it will change a lot of aspects of cloud native operations, like metrics and service meshes. Thus, it will slowly become related for application rollout as well if you don't use it yet. Actually, yesterday afternoon, when I was practicing the slides, I realized that I forget to mention open telemetry when I was looking at open feature, because I thought that it says open telemetry first. Anyway, it's not. If you use feature flags, I expect a similar change in feature flags than what OpenTelemetry brought to observability. Basically, the issues that I've heard with feature flagging is that if you acquire companies and your companies have different feature flagging solutions, they will likely never converge on a single tool. The same was true, or even is true today, with observability. And OpenTelemetry changed it for observability. Open feature will hopefully change it for feature flagging as well. As a result, it will likely result in expansion of feature flag usage, etc., which can be really good for our users as well if we have good feature flags, I think. And now, referring back to December 22 with the SolarWinds attack, Sigstore graduates from the Open Source Security Foundation 4 years later, actually 3.5 years later. I think this truly shows how quickly the open source community can get around a really hard topic and offer an enterprise-ready solution, which is like extremely hard, in 3.5 years. So it's awesome, and congrats to everybody around who worked on Sigstore. A final item to add it to the map, which is Interto graduation from the CNCF. Interto is a standard SBOM specification. There are other SBOM standards SBOM specifications as well, but they are not open standards typically. And this roughly concludes the timeline. I know that this was a lot, but I hope that you get at least some overview of the major points that shaped our industry and how things were moving, like really supply chain security becoming a big topic across the globe in 2022. That was like, or 2020, that was really something unexpected for many of us, I think. Like before, yeah, you have to deal with it, but like nobody took it really seriously. And roughly, if I would summarize, it means that yes, we have the cloud, we have containerization, we have Kubernetes, we have GitOps, we have software supply chain, and there's something around AI. But somehow all of these don't really fit together after containerization. So there's just like missing pieces, even if you start thinking about these items in a single cohesive fashion, as I will try to show you in the next slide. Please show me a show of hands. Do you know what is a Wardley map? If you do. Yeah, I expected that fewer people will know than how many people do platform teams. So let me give you a brief intro into Wardley maps. Simon Wardley from the UK has this theory that every single market evolves through these 4 stages, 5, 4, I have no idea. Genesis, you have the idea, great. That's the Heureka moment. Then you have custom-built solutions, which are really only within your own company. I think I can actually, do something else. So you have custom-built solutions, this way the others see as well. After the custom-built solutions, some of those custom-built solutions either are productized, or simply some of those engineers form a company and create a product around a custom-built solution. And slowly products become commodities. To give you a specific example, think about Git. Raised, I don't know, 2006, 5, 4, I have no idea. Anyway, today I would say that a simple Git repo is very much a commodity. You go to GitHub, go to GitLab, you get it for free. Still, you can pay for it. There are enterprise features built on top of Git, like large repo management and stuff like that, which are still products, but the core idea is very much a commodity. If you go back 20 years, it was very much custom built. Even when GitHub just started and no company wanted to store their code on GitHub just for open source, then basically it was a custom built solution you had to manage in-house. So that's roughly how you should look at the x-axis here. Now the y-axis is the value chain, and you should read every Wardley map from top to bottom. In this case, it means that our value chain is about the application owner wants to release. I have to make my view a bit bigger. Okay, stay there. So the application owner wants to release a new version to the users. That's our problem. And for that, he needs to drive traffic to that new version, and he needs as well to deploy that new version to production, obviously. But to drive traffic, you want to check metrics all the time that they are good. And for that, again, you want to deploy to new versions. So this is roughly how you read a Wordly map going from top to bottom. And every step is roughly a requirement for the previous step that you mentioned. Deploying a new version requires that the environment is ready for you and dependencies were taken care of, which will likely require an orchestration engine. I have no idea why I put it in commodities. I think dependency management is one of the hardest things and very much unsolved today. Anyway, I did like a year ago. It might have been solved back then. For an application environment, you want an approved release artifact. If you are not a regulated enterprise, approvals might be mostly unknown to you, or it's like kind of hidden somewhere in the process. But for many companies, it's a requirement to have some kind of setup around it. And for that, you need an approval tool. And one thing that I have only even heard very few companies discussing, and even very few custom-built solutions that they were happy with, was actually to collaborate on the release artifact. And you have to build that release artifact, which will be triggered by an application container build, for example, that's triggered by a release build or something. So this is the main idea of a Wordly map. And then you see other things like these orange arrows and points, which show dynamics, how things are changing. And the first one is that progressive delivery tools becoming products with Flagger and Argo rollouts, actually. Similarly, another change is dependency management. I would say this is a missing market, and I originally created this drawing for GitLab. I put it in a public issue, so that's why I can reuse it. And I was arguing that we could actually invest into dependency management better here. Similarly, collaborating on release artifacts very much unsolved. You can collaborate in a pull request / merge request, but not on a release artifact itself. And I've seen really crazy setups how companies try to solve that. And building a release artifact, I would say it's very much moving towards commodities without us doing anything, with Flux, Argo, and CI becoming a commodity as well as we speak, since GitLab pipelines and GitHub Actions are there. It's like very much a commodity today. So what's next? Again, the summary of what I spoke about before. And based on this, what I would expect is that in a few years, tools like InToto, the update framework, Sigstore will become mainstream. They will be integrated into tools, and hopefully many of you will not have to know that they exist if you do it right. But first, today, many of these integrations are at the custom build phase. The tools are there, they're available, but you have to do it yourself. And that's the question whether there will be good products who actually integrate them, which means as well that there is likely an opportunity for all of you to build these tools and products and become rich out of that. The other big item that I personally miss a lot, and I love application delivery, I think that all our CI, so-called CI/CD tools, actually CI tools, were CD as an afterthought. And at the same time, they have extremely different requirements, like CI, FML runtime environment, run that process, throw it away. You don't want to throw away your production environment once you deploy to it. So I think I expect actually a lot of innovation, just like Cargo was there a few years ago, and actually even last year had a big run, I think, just like Captain tried a bit longer time ago. So I expect a lot of things to happen there. And finally, a few words about AI. First of all, large language models and generative AI is not AI. It's a very small subset of AI. And I try to learn a lot about what they are capable of, etc., speaking with all kinds of experts. I don't think that large language models will ever do proper reasoning. And I'm not an AI professional to say whether AI itself will be able to do proper reasoning. It could, but I don't think it will be based on large language model architectures. So if you want to model a process, let it be incident management or application delivery, I don't think that it will actually help you to have awesome large language models. They might be good for a lot of things, even around application delivery, but it won't change our industry dramatically. Another aspect that I would like to mention for all of you here is think about fine-tune models. If you don't know what they are and how can you fine-tune a model, learn it, because likely your company in-house has enough data to fine-tune a model. It's relatively cheaply. It can be done relatively cheaply and well, and it can help you a lot with in-house improved processes and tools. And I wouldn't be surprised if companies like Dash0, for example, would try to fine-tune models just to help you and give you some more value around that. And finally, around CD requirement, as I mentioned already, I don't expect much changes coming only from Gen AI and LLM. On the other hand, from the more broader set of AI tools, which is mostly in the shadow these years, I wouldn't be surprised if just like LLM quotas kind of unexpectedly new things would emerge, but you can't expect the unexpected. So with that, I'm more than happy to discuss application delivery with anyone. You can connect with me at that QR code. It points to my LinkedIn page. And these were my insights about application delivery.